Hello everyone, this is Fantasy-esque and welcome back to the Fairy Amazon Challenge in The Sims 4. We are following the reign of Queen Cypria Reed Daisy, who has recently held the Royal Forage quest, where she has emerged as the winner. While this has further improved her standing in the queendom, the queen can't help but be a little disappointed in her daughter Jadis for not taking advantage of the event to become a more renowned crown princess. As the cost of making her heir was so high, Cypria has a lot of expectations and hopes that her daughter will be her crowning glory. Her greatest desire now is to see Jadis live up to her legacy and become an even better queen. Fuck. Okay, damn it. Before we get into gameplay, there was something I wanted to talk about regarding potential succession outcomes, because this is a question that one of you lovelies asked about in the comments of the last video. What would happen if Jadis died? Who would the throne go to next? Now, I don't typically go into a lot of detail about this because it can be confusing to explain, but it all makes sense in my brain, I promise. And I think I made a little mistake while answering this in the comments, so I'll try to clarify it now. Succession is always based on eldest blood, but that is also dependent on which generation a succession happens. A queen that dies has a replacement in her gen. A queen that loses an heir looks for a successor in her heir's gen. Replacement versus successor. So let's take a look at some scenarios. If Jadis died right now, the queen would select her successor from the oldest blood that would belong to the Generation 2 court, so among the unbred fairies, which would be Lady Bren. So Bren would be the Gen 2 queen after Cypria, and it would be the beginning of a new dynasty. If Cypria dies now, however, in Gen 1, then the next queen won't actually be Jadis, even though she is the crown princess, or even Lady Bren, because Tinka and Sycorax are still teens, and we are looking for a replacement in Generation 1. So the throne would actually pass to the oldest blood among the Gen 1 court, which is Lady Brant. So Brant would become the new queen and make Tinka the crown princess. And since the crown only passes once all the children in a generation are young adults, Tinka would become the Generation 2 queen after her mother. The next question was why Cypria was so worried about Uther if being married to Uther doesn't give Vivian a chance to become queen. This is because even though Uther and his lineage have no impact on succession, all his daughters will be born with additional influence, since their father is a prince. And if the wrong fairies have influence in court, they could orchestrate the death or exile of a royal fairy. Lynette is a great example. She was a crown princess, and yet Titania gave the deciding vote to have her killed. So influence does rack up and can prove deadly in the wrong hands. It can even be turned against the royal family. This is what Cypria was afraid of and trying to prevent, and now Jadis is thinking about the same thing. You know, it's kind of a nice change of pace seeing Jadis scrub toilets, especially after what I explained, because now we kind of realize that her position as heiress is actually very precarious and is entirely dependent on her mother surviving till the crown passes on to Jadis, because if anything happens to Cypria now, then their family, yeah, they're essentially gonna be booted out. They're going to be replaced by another dynasty. So you can kind of understand why Cypria is so freaked out about Lynette dying and why she's so freaked out about like Jadis not being good enough or, you know, trying to become as good as or better than Cypria, because yeah, the way that succession works among the fairies and even vampires, it's definitely uncertain. Like, there is no guarantee that your family is going to stay in power, even if you have daughters. There is absolutely no guarantee. And oh my goodness, Jadis and Cypria are fighting. But you know what, guys? This isn't even the first fight they've had. This is actually the second fight they've had. The first one was off camera, and I'm very worried right now. Because if they become enemies, Cypria could have her own daughter killed. Oh my goodness. Guys, I'm stressed. I'm actually stressed. Wait, hold on. No, this is not what she has a -43 relationship with her mother. I mean, Jada is called a reckoning on her own sister, but the queen ranks higher than her. If they become enemies, if for some reason her mother decides that Jadis was nothing like she expected, then Supriya could actually call a reckoning on her last living daughter. She could call a reckoning on Jadis. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, Jadis, no. This is not the direction we were trying to go in. But I was gonna say, on the note of, things being very precarious for the royal family, I thought we would take a look at how much influence points the fairies of the court have. Right now, Supriya is at a 12. She is the most influential fairy in court with 12 points. After her, Brant and Jadis are the most powerful fairies with 10 influence. So even though Supriya is a little bit disappointed that her daughter didn't gain an extra influence in the Royal Forage quest, she doesn't have very far to go. She would very easily be able to get out of her mother's shadow if she became queen. It wouldn't take too much effort on her part. But if she had won the Royal Forage quest, then both Supriya and Jadis would have been the most powerful fairies with 11 influence, but unfortunately that's not the case. So that's the little pet peeve that the queen has, because I think the queen, she wants Jadis to be even better than Lynette was. She wants Jadis to be even better than herself, because Jadis becoming crown princess came at such a high cost. It came at the cost of Lynette's life. So anyways, after Brant and Jadis, Vivian is the next most powerful with 9 influence points, so her marriage, has really boosted her. After that, we have Bren, who has 8 influence points. Then we have Kayla and Titania, who have 7 influence points. And right at the bottom, we have Brittany, Tinka, and Sycorax, who have 2 influence points. But it's kind of crazy to think that Tinka and Sycorax are the least influential fairies in court right now. But if anything happens to Supriya, they will become royalty. That's how crazy things are. Because their mother, even though they're the youngest in their gen, their mother is the oldest in her gen. So if the queen dies, the fairies will look for a replacement queen within the queen's generation. They won't be looking for a successor. So Brand is going to become the next queen. That is kind of crazy. That is mind-boggling to me. But that's what makes things so exciting, because succession is not as clear-cut as you would assume. But anyways, we also have Tinka and Sycorax's birthday today. So now that I've explained all of this, I want to get the fairies all prepared, and I'm kind of excited to see what sort of fairies Tinka and Sycorax are going to become. This is so surreal that the fairies are gathered to celebrate the last birthdays that we are going to have in this generation. And for some reason, my fairies, it's like they have ants in their pants. They literally cannot sit still. They keep getting up. Even though I have autonomy off, they keep getting up and trying to do all this stuff. That's okay. Let's just go ahead, waste no time, and have Tinka and Sycorax blow out the candles. Well, their father's visiting, which is actually very, very sweet. And it seems so is Utha's father. Utha was roaming around here for a little bit, but now he's gone off. Let's go ahead, though, get Tinka to make a wish first off, and then her sister will have her turn. I'm very excited to see what sort of personalities they will both develop, because this is probably going to influence very heavily whether or not they manage to be successful in the next generation. That's going to be a little bit wild. Also, I didn't take this into account, but when we come back in the next generation, I think I will also be switching up the faction influence system a little bit, because one of you lovelies also pointed out that the current faction system with the harmonious and discordant fairies, fairies, are a little bit skewed. So I do want to fix that up. And I already have an idea in my mind about how I might be able to change that so that it's not nearly as skewed in one direction or the other. But I'm not going to talk about it just yet. We'll talk about that when we get to it in the next gen. However, it does mean that the influence for all the fairies are going to change. Mostly on account of the faction influence, but it is going to change. They might not all be on the same side. So we'll have to see when we get to that. But for now, let us focus in on this. Let us focus in. And I brought that up because we were talking about Queen Cypria having 12, and typically you have to have more influence than the queen to be considered a better queen than her during your reign. But even if influence changes for the fairies in Generation 2, all the fairies in Generation 1 will still have the influence that they had at the end of Generation 1. So Brant and Cypria will keep the influence points they had under the current system. All the other fairies will change in the next gen. So whatever Jadis ends up being in the next gen, whatever she ends up having, she's going to have to try and, become a more influential queen than her mother. I'm sorry if that's confusing again, but hey. Okay, once you're done, add birthday candles, and oh, yes. I will go through, randomize the aspiration and final trait, and then we'll be back. So for Tinka, she has randomized the aspiration of bodybuilder and the trait nosy. So this is going to be intriguing going forward for sure. That was an unexpected trait for her, but I feel like with everything we've talked about recently, it's going to lead us down an interesting path. But can we put some candles on the cake, please? Let's put some candles on the cake, and then we'll get Sycorax to go and blow out the candles as well, or, to make her wish. Okay, let's put the candles on the cake. Sycorax, now it's your turn to make a wish. Let's see what sort of fairy you end up being, my dear. Even though you have caused enough chaos as it is. Let's see if she descends further into chaos, or she somehow manages to redeem herself. Maybe she'll have a redemption arc, I don't know. Let's see. Okay, Sycorax. Don't get lost. Don't get lost in the fairy wings. Where are you going? Oh, she just needed some space. And let's go ahead and randomize to see what she gets. Okay, now this took me by surprise, because Sycorax randomized the soulmate aspiration and the hates children trait, which means that she is never going to participate in breeding unless she swaps that trait out for something else. For as long as she has that trait, she's not going to be interested in having any children. Wow. Well, that's what we have for Tinka and Sycorax. Now let me go off and do their makeovers. Lady Brand's daughters have aged up into young adults, so let's take a look at them in cast, starting off with Tinka. Both daughters have also received the title of a lady now that they are older. Lady Tinka aspires to be a bodybuilder and has developed the nosy trait. I think this quite clearly shows that Tinka wants to toughen herself up so that she can protect herself against betrayal and danger. But also, her teenage years might have taught her that she's been far too removed from the happenings in court, to the extent that she doesn't even know what's going on in the minds of her own family members. Lynette was a close friend of hers, and yet her mother and her twin sister both voted for Lynette's death. For this reason, she's become nosy and overly concerned about everyone else's business. In terms of appearance, she is quite stunning. She has long, sleek hair parted in the middle with a braid on each side, and her face is complemented by her full peach-colored lips and softly blushed cheeks. She wears silver jewelry with a heart pendant that symbolizes her desire to protect her heart and those close to her. Overall, she is a fairy that has an enchanting and mystical aura. And that's all for Lady Tinka. Lady Sycorax aspires to find a soulmate and has developed the hates children trait. I'm gonna be honest, this was such a surprise to me, but it makes a whole lot of sense. Her questionable decisions at the Reckoning have resulted in everyone looking at her sideways and outcasting her a little bit, which has made Sycorax crave some sort of solace. Maybe she feels that it doesn't matter who judges her, as long as one person in the world understands her. That aside, falling out with her sister has made her lose faith in family, and she doesn't want kids of her own. The family legacy doesn't matter so long as her individual ambitions are met. I think we can also interpret this as Sycorax wanting to serve across multiple queens. In terms of appearance, she is quite striking. I always thought her sister was prettier, but I actually like Sycorax's look more. Honestly, the more I'm studying her, the more I'm getting a Snow White sort of vibe. She's got bold makeup, shimmery accents on the eyes, and deep red lips that enhance her enchanting look, and she wears silver jewelry that adds to her mystical charm. Overall, she's got quite a powerful presence. And that's all for Lady Sycorax. Okay, our fairies are having some of the delicious birthday cake that was baked by our queen. And we are going to be doing their birthday whims in a second over here. But both our fairies, according to the system we have in this generation, have declared their factions. Both of them declared for the harmonious faction, which means everyone in that faction gets now +2 influence points, and they get +8 faction influence, which brings Tinka and Sycorax to a total of 9 influence, making them equal to Tinka and Kayla as well. So yeah, their birthday has given them a huge boost. It also means that Queen Cypria is now at 14 influence points, which is pretty wild. I mean, Jadis doesn't have much to catch up to because she's got 12 right now, but in the next gen, when I redo the way our faction influence works, or how that's decided, we won't be having harmonious and discordant anymore. Jadis's influence is going to be changed. So I am not entirely sure how everyone in the next gen will be affected. She'll still have to live up to Queen Cypria's 14, but she might not be at 12 influence at that point. But that's okay, we don't have to worry too much about any of that just yet. Let's go through and do the whims for our birthday girls. So first up, Lady Sycorax. She wants to do something romantic. So let's see who she might be romantic with, and she can be romantic with pretty much everyone that's not her family member because she's not related to them. So let's go ahead and see who she has the best relationship with, okay? She has a 40 friendship with Titania, a 55 with Cypria, a 52, well, I didn't even know I counted her mother, let's not do that. She has a 15 with Kayla, a 12 with Vivian, and 100 with Bren. It's gonna be Lady Bren. Okay. You know what though? This kind of makes sense because we know that Sycorax, she's always kind of been vying for power. And if you look at who has kind of a special position in court right now, well, aside from Jadis, who pretty much hates her guts, and Queen Cypria, Bren is a counselor. So why wouldn't she be a little bit bold with someone like Bren? So she's gonna do something romantic. Let's flirt with her a little bit. I don't know how Bren's gonna take this. And Sycorax has never had, a crush on anyone. Unlike her sister Tinka, she has never had any sort of a romance with anyone her age. But she's gonna go ahead, get a little bit bold with Bren. Okay, there we go. And she also wanted to share ideas. And well, she is the closest to Bren, so I suppose she'll go and share some ideas with Bren as well. So let's go and share some brilliant ideas. I think, yeah, she has a really good friendship going on with Bren, so she's probably trying to talk to her about how she feels outcasted by everyone and nobody really understands her intentions. And she's probably telling Bren that she was just trying to do what was right by everyone, and she thought that's what everyone wanted. It's not that she was turning against Lynette or anything. She just didn't think that it was good for the stability of the court for Jadis to have a potential rival. So yeah, she's trying to defend herself, but she's gone ahead and done her birthday whims. And then moving on to her sister Tinka. Tinka wants to chat with Sycorax. Okay, so I suppose for Tinka, she has actually been very, very bothered about not knowing what was on her mother and sister's minds. So let's see, what might she want to do? I think she'd tell her sister she looks quite beautiful today because, it is their birthday. And she is a generous sort of soul. So even if she feels a little bit betrayed and disappointed in Sycorax, I think she would still try and make her sister feel better. Because she is not that petty and she kind of knows that it's an important day. It's a big day for both of them. So she'll be kind, she'll talk to her sister. So let's see, hopefully they can have a decent sort of conversation, even if they may not be able to bury the hatchet, so to speak, right now. Next up, she wants to learn about a sim. So let's see who she has the closest relationship with. Let's see, she has a 41 with Beren, she has a 99 with Jadis, a 16 with Vivian, 100 with Kayla, a 66 with Brant, a 94 with Supriya, 4 with Brittany, and a 22 with Titania. So it's going to be Kayla. She's going to go to Kayla, and she is going to try and get to know more about Kayla. So let's see, we'll probably go into small talk, we'll get to know her. So let's find out what's going on with Kayla. I think Titania would also, what am I saying? Not Titania. Tinka would also probably want to talk to one of her other faction members that has the same influence as her, Kayla, so that she can get a bit of an insider scoop, because we know that she's going to start minding everyone's business now. She feels like she shouldn't be so closed off to what's happening in the court, because it can get very dramatic very quickly, and I think for her, it kind of hurts to find out such shocking things in front of everyone when you thought you were close and special to someone, or you think, you have a really close bond, you'd be the first one to kind of hear about these kind of things in private before everyone else. So I think she's starting to see the benefit in chatting with other court members. Do we manage to learn about her? I don't know. I tried to talk with her, to get to know her. Can we get to know Kayla? Can we chat with her? What is going on there? Let's try one more time. If it doesn't work, I'm just gonna consider it done. Okay, there we go. Now she's chatting with her. So that's what makes Tinka happy. And I don't know why I keep wanting to call her Titania, but she is not Titania. Anyways, I actually think their birthday was very peaceful. Unexpectedly peaceful. I don't know if I was anticipating any drama or not, but I think everyone has kind of handled this birthday pretty well. Nobody really went off at each other or got into a fight, which is very, very nice. The ladies were quite well behaved, but it could also be the fact that they're kind of coming to the realization that Supriya's reign is pretty much at an end. Like, guys, the youngest fairies in Generation 2, the youngest children of the court, have pretty much grown up. Which means that the next episode is going to be our last episode. Queen Supriya is going to be handing over the crown to her daughter Jadis. Isn't that wild? Isn't that just wild? Okay, now it's time for the queen to be using her fairy powers to influence the relationships in the court. First off, the queen is going to influence her relationship with, where is she? With Crown Princess Jadis. And I rolled a 1, so she's wanting to fix up the friendship that she has with her daughter. Obviously, they have come so far. The queen realizes how precarious a family situation is, and at the end of the day, she wants what's best for her lineage, and so she should really be throwing her support behind Jadis instead of them having this divide between them. So she doesn't want the kind of lost thing Jadis remembers about her mother to be a sense of bitterness and disappointment. Right now, their friendship is at a -39. So let's get the queen to use her abilities and patch things up. And let's see what kind of effect this has had. Okay, there we go. Now the friendship is at a -19, so, much improved. Next up, the queen wants to influence the relationship of Lady Tinka. So she wants to improve I say improve, I don't actually know. She wants to influence Tinka's relationship with Lady Brittany. And I rolled a 4. So decrease romantic relationship. Now they don't have any sort of romance right now anyways. So what I'm interpreting this as is the queen not wanting there to be anything romantic between Tinka and Brittany. I feel this goes into the crush that Tinka and Jadis have on each other, and since Brittany is kind of new to the court, she hasn't managed to build close ties with, anyone really. The queen wants Brittany's loyalty and alliance to be towards Jadis, not towards Tinka and her family. So I think that is the reason why she's probably wanting to do this. The queen has been very insistent for a very long time that she does not want Tinka and Jadis to be an item. And I think that comes down to her wanting to protect and preserve her own family over competitors, because at the end of the day, the other fairies, they are competitors, So she really doesn't want anyone or a group of the fairies to gang up against Jadis the way that they all ended up ganging up against Lynette. She's kind of seen this horrific thing happen to her eldest daughter, and she doesn't want a repeat of that. And she kind of feels as though the best way to ensure that is to keep a distance from some of the fairies, or at least to make sure that, kind of like she did in her reign, everyone loves the queen, not necessarily each other. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that, if she wants everyone to love the queen, why would she be against Tinka and Jadis? But the thing is, if Tinka and Jadis become an item like in the next gen while Jadis is the monarch, things might be different. But like we discussed early on, if something happens to Supriya, then Tinka is essentially going to become crown princess. Because the royals, the Reed Daisy royals, their dynasty, they don't have any other spares. Supriya doesn't have sisters or any other daughters or aunts. She doesn't have anyone who can kind of take the crown after her if something happens to her. So the throne will definitely pass to a new dynasty if Queen Supriya kind of croaks. So before the crown sits on Jadis's head, she does not want anything to kind of come in between her family and their right to the throne. And so a relationship between a rival family and Jadis is a problem. But if Jadis becomes queen and then she decides to be with Tinka, I don't think that's going to be an issue. It's just right now. Like, Supriya's, position, her family's position, as royals is entirely dependent on her being healthy and being on the throne until the crown is passed. There she is. Before we end the episode, there was another interesting comment I wanted to address. One of you lovelies were asking, hypothetically, what would have happened if Lynette had been exiled instead of killed? Which I think is a really fascinating question and really got me thinking. So here it is. If Lynette had been exiled, she would have been gone for the remainder of this generation. We would have then seen her in the vampire court as a guest for the entirety of Generation 2. Then, in Generation 2 of Fairy Amazon, she would have been called back to the fairy court by Queen Jadis as a royal spare. So she would have joined the luxury class and stayed out of politics. This would have also made her immune to further reckonings, because reckonings only affect members of the main court. An intriguing alternative to think about. And with that said and done, I am going to leave off here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.